The dream. The dream. So I was having a dream. Um, I saw the person, but God told me not to say the person's name. Um, I opened the door to talk to them. We got into an altercation. He cut my head off, and he said he had to take my head back to the people to show proof. And I was standing there, kind of just settling into, wow, I can't believe I'm gonna die. And then some inspiration hit me and said, God told you were going to live 120 years. I said, oh, right. So I looked at Angola and Abby, and I said, Abby, come go with me to the hospital. A guy knocked on the door. It was a tall, skinny white guy with kind of like a box face. The guy from The Hill, The Hill, something Hill. It's a cartoon for adults. That daddy guy, it looked like him, but this guy had like grayish, blondish hair. And I said, can you take me to the hospital? And he kind of leaned back and looked at me like, I wonder if she knows she doesn't have a head. But he heard me. He said, sure. So we walked out to his car. Instead of opening the door, the side door, for us to get in, he went to the back of the car to like put us in the trunk area. It was a light blue colored old Jeep. The Jeeps that have that door in the back that swings, it opens from the side. And my daughter Abby looked and she said, no, no. So my daughter Abby knows. And I said, oh no, you're one of those. I'm the one that my intuition was hampered for a long time. And I entertained all kinds of murderers, thieves, like that. And maybe God sent those people to me because He was giving them one last chance to change their heart. So back to the dream. I said, oh no, you're one of them. So now we're out at the mailbox. This was at 6010 North 32nd Street, my childhood home, which we are currently fighting over. I don't know why we're fighting. Dorothy Atkins and Arthur Atkins left 6 pieces of property. Her will said share equally. And my brother pretty much wants everything for himself, and he's willing to kill to be the last man standing. So here we are in the Hunger Game. So this man was choking me around my neck, and I started yelling, help, help. And there were Puerto Rican men coming up the block, and they were moving towards my way to help me. And then I grabbed this pitchfork and stabbed this man through his body. He fell to the ground. I stabbed the white guy before the Puerto Ricans got there. And I kind of looked at them to say thank you. I got in the truck I told Abby, come on. She got in shotgun, and I jumped in the Jeep, the man's Jeep, to drive myself to St. Joseph's Hospital. So I think God is trying to tell me that if you have the will to live, you will live even with no head. And I was just thinking on the way there that there might be a head there of somebody who they can put on top of my head. There's tubes and stuff, technology has really advanced. There's a movie called Meet Joe Black. And I'm sure this technology exists where they move that movie, Meet Joe Black. Wait a minute. That's not the movie where they move the body over, is it? No. What's the name of the movie where they move that soul from one person to another person's body? I can't remember the name of the movie. I don't know why I'm thinking it's Meet Joe Black, but it may be. And in the movie Get Out, you saw how they transferred the souls of the Caucasians into the black young men's bodies. And there were some glitches, but they always work out the kinks and glitches. So I was thinking there has to be some technology that will allow me to continue to live. Maybe not in my original state because he took my head. Now, Okay, so that's the end of the dream. So if you're a dream interpreter, Anthony Blair, are you still alive? Are you in Jamaica? Or are you here? Last time I talked to you, we were at Dr. Twiggs's building, so that had to be in 2023 because we were evicted from Dr. Twiggs's building at 3304 East Hillsborough Avenue, right across from, I don't even know the name of that car lot, right by the Money Pond, Mr. Money Pond broker on 34th and Hillsborough. On July 28th, 2024, Hillsborough County Officer Stein, Sergeant Stein, right? The two V's upside down. I think that's a Sergeant Stein. I can still see him standing so debonair, or shall I say, it's not demure, it was standing erect. And I love their uniforms, those crisp white shirts with that, nice polyester green. It just looks so official. Yeah. And the guy that came from Tampa Police Department, he was probably a fake police officer. I don't even think he was real. They give these names that don't make sense because his name was something like Pepelowski, and Pepelowski spelled pretty much the same as the Speaker of the House. I don't know if we have a new Speaker of the House. So they use these names of existing people, not like other people can't be named after them, but I'm pretty sure it was a fake name, and I think it was a fake Tampa police officer. I think there's a crime ring that has Tampa police cars and Tampa police uniforms, but they're not real police officers. The reason I say that is the way we ended up at Dr. Twiggs's building is from a illegal company called A Plus Properties, and maybe they have legitimized themselves now. Eric Allen was the owner, and Evelyn Rosado was the property manager. She looked like she was definitely a meth head, and the people who came to move my stuff out of the house looked like meth heads too. Now, the day they came to evict me, there was a tall, balding, light-skinned black man, African American, named, he said his name was Say, Saey. Now, anybody can make a name, can make their name whatever they want it to be. But that's what he said. And he said, oh, the judge denied it. I'm pretty sure he was lying. He said he was going to call a supervisor. Supervisor was going to call. They called down to the courthouse to Chief Judge Ronald Figueroa, and he said it was denied. He lied. And I cast judgment on you for that. Say, I don't know how much they paid to do this corrupt crap, but that day that they evicted us, June 2nd of 2022, numerologically speaking, it has significance, and it was 4 Tampa police officers in the yard, and I think they were probably all fake. Marcus Leggett, we went to school together, so he was probably there because Ava or Alva connected with him to do some messed up stuff. Yay! I didn't say a curse word. I was about to. I had to search for other words. And there were 4 Hillsborough County Sheriff officers there. And there was a guy that arrested me, really kidnapped me. They kidnapped me, put me in one sheriff car, and kidnapped my child and put my child in another sheriff car. This happened way back in, let's see, the Gore versus George Bush election. That would have been 25 years ago. We were peacefully protesting, my child and I, waiting on my fake friend Natalie Renee Carnegie to arrive to the protest. This happened on Falkenberg in front of the supervisor of elections office on the sidewalk. You have the right to peaceful protest on the sidewalk, but this day, a guy by the name of Officer Grual, Gruala, I believe, he said that he was working to clean up the signs and the little signs that they have on the two little wire pins that you stick down in the earth. He was picking those up. I said, well, I'm actively using my signs, so you can't take my signs. And of course, he created an altercation and told me if I didn't give him my signs, he was going to take me to jail. I said, this was stupid of me. You're just going to have to arrest me. No, I'm not giving you my signs. I am peacefully protesting. And he had his workers take the signs and he arrested me. Now, I had not committed a crime, so he had to create something. He drove me over next door because we were at the supervisor of elections office, which is, I think, on a corner. I'm pretty sure it's on the corner of Falkenberg, and I don't know the side street. But the Falkenberg Road jail is next to it, which is a really large complex. He drove me over there. I said, well, why are you arresting me? What did I do? I didn't commit any crime. There were 5 white officers to appear. I think one was a lady, two was a lady. This was many years ago. Maybe it was 2 Caucasian ladies and 3 kind of tall white guys. And he looked at me with a sinister laugh like, yeah, bitch, we got you now. I was an activist, and that's why I was protesting. Many people disagreed with my style of activism. So they went and had a conference. And when they came out of the back room, what they came up with is, you tried to yank the sign out of my hand, and I arrested you. And they released me, but they, scarred my record and lied and said that I tried to yank the sign out of his hand and gave me the charge of resisting without violence. I said, hey, you can't do that. You lied. This is not true. And again, he looked at me with that sinister laugh and let me go. After that, I received a letter from, was it Superintendent Sickles back then? I worked as a substitute teacher. They sent me a long letter telling me it was character I'm becoming of a county employee. Um, and I sent them a letter back saying, listen, is this the same time? I may be getting 2 different arrests mixed up. I was given a bogus charge at Winn-Dixie Plaza on East Hillsborough, in between 22nd Street and 30th Street. There used to be a Winn-Dixie deep back in that plaza. What is that now? They just renovated that and turned it into a new business. I don't know what it is, but there's a McDonald's right when you cross the railroad track. There's San Hua. There's a Yummy House Chinese restaurant. There's the Meridian Apartments. What used to be Funland Flea Market is across the street. But that Burger King, behind the Burger King, they put a plaza back there. In that plaza, there is a kidney dialysis place, and then there is a little plaza straight back in the back where there used to be a Winn-Dixie. It turned into a Harvey's, and Harvey's closed. I don't know if City Trend is still back there. So there used to be a City Trend back there next to the Winn-Dixie. On a Sunday, I said, Dad, ride with me. I want to go get some Breyer's ice cream. That's what we were going to have for dessert. And I get in the grocery store, and I'm standing in the line, and a lady, maybe that's the same lady I saw in the New York Library, said she was from Jacksonville. There's something weird going on with this Jacksonville thing. Some kind of way I must be connected to Jacksonville. It keeps coming up. But let me leave the reminiscing and go back to what happened in the grocery store when it was called Winn-Dixie. Um, a buggy fell and a child was in the buggy. So the child fell with the buggy. And even though I really thought it was the mom's fault too, because she should have been watching her child, she should have made sure her child sat down like that. It was the store manager's responsibility to still fill out a accident incident form, and he wouldn't do it. So the police officer was standing at the door, and I'm like, well, why won't he help? He sees the commotion, and he just kept standing at the door. So I turned around in the store. I said, hey, I want to encourage you all not to shop here because these people don't value their customers and they don't follow their procedures. Basically, that's kind of summing it up because I don't know what I said. This has been over 20 years, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. I'm trying to remember the date. I remember it was around April 6th of what year? I can't remember the year. So when I yelled to the people to encourage them to put their shit down and walk out or come to the aid of this mother and at least have them complete the forms, he could put the truth, he could put exactly what happened. This child was playing in the buggy fell on the child and, was laying on the ground. The buggy fell on top of the child and the baby was crying. I mean, the mama could have set it all up now that I think about it, 2 decades later. But nobody came to the aid of the woman and nobody listened to anything I said except for the police officer. Now he's grabbing me and, jostling me out the door, almost threw me down on the ground. He acted like he was trying to throw me down on the ground, but I kept praying, God, please help me. Don't let him throw me onto the ground and scratch up my skin. And he put me in the back of the police car. I said, I haven't committed a crime. I mean, why didn't you help the lady? You're the police officer. And I found out years later that Officer Dana Singer, which I don't think is his real name, I think whenever they get in trouble, they have like a bogus name they give. I said, why didn't you help her? I found out like later after, I had to spend 6 months wrestling in Judge Nick Nazaritan's courtroom, word wrangling with these people to get them to dismiss this case and get it off my record. He was an off-duty officer. So I said to them then, if they're working off-duty, they shouldn't be allowed to wear the city of Tampa's police uniform because we think they're working for us as a public servant. But when you're in private duty, you're not working for the people. You're working for the company that is paying you. So that's why he didn't help the lady, because he was on private duty, but with the perception of him having on his uniform and being in his Tampa police car, we, the people, had the right to assume that he was a public servant working for us. So they scarred me with that and put that on my record. And so my life just started declining because when you get arrested, even though they might dismiss it or they don't give you any jail time or anything, when you go to get jobs that, are high paying and high ranking, if there's any hit with you being arrested, they don't hire you and they don't take you serious. So that put my life on the ground in my early 20s. And I kept trying to fight them for them to remove it completely, take me to trial so I can be found not guilty. And then when I'm found not guilty, they have to take it off. Well, when I was arrested with the peaceful protest about the hanging Chads, supervisor of elections was Pam Iorio. They didn't remove that off of my record. And when I was arrested in the grocery store, Winn-Dixie, they didn't move that off my record either. I had to leave my car there. So how did I get out of jail and get my car? I don't remember, but I had to leave my dad there at the grocery store because they took me to jail from Winn-Dixie. And I'm in there talking to him about Martin Luther King and how this is a miscarriage of justice. And he didn't really want to hear those things. So, and the third time, so I've been arrested 3 times illegally kidnapped by these law enforcement officers. Was they stole my children, kidnapped my children right from under me with faulty paperwork, the same way they put me out of the house on June 2nd, 2022. So let me tell you how this happened. I was doing a Reality Speaks talk show with a agency called Speak Up Tampa Bay. It's community television. Louise Thompson was the director, or she ran the program. It was on North A Street or North B Street many years ago. Dr. Conley turned me on to the radio station, not radio, the TV station, and he allowed me to come and co-host on his show. And then he helped me to get the training and to start my own show. So my show was called Reality Speaks. I can't remember the name of Dr. Conley's show. May he be resting in peace. Um, the city and local businesses did not like the fact that there was a platform that allowed people to call in and air their grievances and tell their stories of injustices. And they slowly and clandestinely started attacking my TV show. Well, they were sabotaging my show. It was just me. I was using Studio C, which is a one person studio. You set up the camera, you do your angles, you switch from camera 1 to camera 2. You do all of that. And God told me to get up and go outside and look at the teleprompter outside to see what was going on. And lo and behold, I was doing a live show and they were playing a live show from last week, from the week prior. And so they were sabotaging me there from the station. What was that black girl's name? There was only one black girl that worked in that front office. I can't remember her name. And strange things were happening to me when I would leave there. They would be trying to run me off the road or just pass by me really fast and really close in a Tampa police car. And they were giving me these little subtle signs that basically your life is in danger. If you keep talking that shit, you're going to have you some problems. And I'm like, oh God, what do I do? Do I want to end up a martyr like Dr. Martin Luther King? It's not worth it, especially for what I'm getting from the people that call into the show, which were primarily African American people. They call in, they whine and complain. I said, listen, I can't do everything. If you call in and complain about the widow's benefit is too low, then you have to be willing to become the president or to spearhead the group for other women and men who are having the same problems. You all call in and tell me this. Now, I done started 10 different task force. I don't even have enough energy to brush my teeth, wash my face, and I ain't got enough money to keep gas in my car. Nobody's paying me for my activism. And it's become a full-time, everyday job now. Running over here with my camera, reporting this crime, running over here, making promises. Oh, I'm going to help you do this. I'm going to help you do that. And then I'm helping these people. They don't even give me money to make copies, to send certified mail, to follow up with the nothing. And I had no source of income to back me. So, of course, it collapsed. And I was running a tutoring program at the same time. Now, I was this when I ran for school board. Was I running for school board the first time around this time? I don't think it is. So I messed around and let this person knock me up, and I heard, don't go down to the cable station pregnant. But I think I'm big and bad. And I heard the thought in my mind. I didn't know where the thought was coming from. I thought it was my, fearful side. So I go back down to the Speak Up Tampa Bay to start my show again, pregnant. And the powers that be saw this as an opportunity to retaliate against me. And they did. The powers that be, whoever they are, the unseen hand of the puppet master, they made phone calls. And they said, when she goes into labor, we're going to kill her. And I believe with all my heart, mind, body, and soul, that was their intention. But God was talking to me like, you're very hard-headed. I told you not to do this. Now you got yourself in trouble, but you're my child. I'm going to help you out of this. Get you some gas money and get the F up out of Hillsborough County. Matter of fact, get up out of the whole state of Florida. Now, I lollygagged and procrastinated, and I want you to know I went into labor here in Hillsborough County primarily because of my mother, Dorothy Atkins. She kept confusing me. I she was my God. I listened to her over God, and that's why I ended up hemmed up. She was like, "Oh, please, Aileen, go to the doctor. Go to the doctor." And I was like, "No, I'm going to have a midwife. I'm going to have a home birth. This is going to be my last birth." I had a child that was 14 going on 15, or maybe was already 15. And I didn't only have one child because, I was not sexually active or I was socially responsible and using condoms. I used I used abortions to keep my family small. I aborted a set of twins prior to the twins that I have. Their last name probably would have been Baker. I aborted two other children, two, maybe three. And I'm sorry that I can't remember children. I'm speaking to the children that I killed by way of abortion. I'm really sorry. I was heavily, heavily, heavily matrix minded, and the Leviathan curse had me under. Not only that, I'm sure my family was doing spell work against me at that time as well. Now, back to me going down to the station pregnant. When it was time for me to give birth, my sister took me to a couple of appointments in Lakeland to see the midwife. I was talking to my then Black Panther mentor, who completely turned on me to this very day. I don't know why. It's either because of something Natalie Renee Carnegie, who was supposed to be my activist friend, or Letitia Karima Penn could have said something to him. Johanna L. was supposed to go with me while I give birth to the baby. His name is Johnny B. Smith Jr. That's his government name. But he was a part of Dr. York's order, and his name, I don't know if Dr. York renamed him or he renamed himself, was Johanna L. And I told him, when I go into labor, I would like for you to go with me during the birth. I thought it would be a good idea to have a man with me because I knew they were going to try something. I could feel it so deeply in my bones. In the interim, I told my midwife, Carla, at St. Joseph Hospital, because they had a midwifery program within the hospital, which allows women to give birth with a midwife at the hospital so that if anything happens, you're already at the hospital. So Carla with the K said, "Oh, you have her blood. You can sell your blood." I said, "I don't want to sell anything. I want my children's two placentas. I want to take them home. I want to bury them and plant a tree on top of them, do a naming ceremony. I want to do lotus birth. I want to keep the placentas attached." I guess it was a lot to hear. So they scheduled an appointment for me to meet with the hospital administration or risk management, I can't remember, within St. Joseph's Hospital so that I could arrange to bring my placentas home. I was scheduled when I went to the hospital. They handed me a letter and said that they dropped me because I was high risk. Now I'm 8 months pregnant. They dropped me as a patient because I'm high risk, and they can't have me as a patient. So that's called being abandoned, right? That's what I later found out. Now I'm 8 months pregnant. I have been dropped by my OB/GYN physician hospital, and I'm scrambling to find a place to give birth. And I'm doing research, doing research, doing research. And I decide I'm leaving the state of Florida to give birth because I really felt like they were going to try to kill me. Maybe they still thought, oh, she's going to go to one of the hospitals in Hillsborough County. And, we already done talked to all of them. If she comes in, she needs to kill the babies, kill her, keep the babies, whatever their plan was. I am alleging. So I said, God, what am I going to do? Because I was half listening to my mother, I didn't get myself out of here. I thought I was going to go to Des Moines, Israel. They have a birthing center there, and it was really, really economical to live there. And you give birth to the baby there, and then they grow pretty much all of the foods that you need to keep yourself up. So I bought their pamphlet on how to feed myself, how to feed my babies. It was dates, wheat germ, fenugreek seeds. What else was in there? Honey, I think. I can't remember everything. Oranges, but it's a natural way of feeding yourself and feeding your baby to make sure you're both ultra healthy. I couldn't get up the money to get to Des Moines, Israel, so that was a wrap. Then I thought, okay, I'll go to the farm. So I bought and read Ina Gaskin's book. She was the person that ran the farm in Tennessee, and they had a community where women turned school buses into homes. And I had a little gray Tacoma pickup truck, and I was really, is that why we got a Tacoma pickup truck? Maybe Ava stole my identity way back then. That was in 2004. I didn't know if that little Tacoma pickup truck was going to make it. I was taking care of my grandmother, my dad's mom, Melva Atkins, who fell trying to get to the phone, allegedly. I still think she was attacked in her apartment at the Bethune High Rise. I could be wrong, but I can't shake that feeling. My dad was sick and in the hospital. Wait a minute. Am I colliding stories again? I am colliding stories again. So I was taking care of my grandmother, but my dad had already passed? Yes, my dad had already passed. But she fell trying to get to the door because my dad was in the hospital, and that's how we ended up moving her from the Bethune High Rise to our house at 6010 North 32nd Street. While I was pregnant, I was taking care of her, and I had planned to give birth at home. And my grandmother was there, and I was wondering if anything happens and they come, I don't want them to take my grandmother into DCF custody. And I wish that I had more courage because I wouldn't have let my grandmother go into the nursing home. She went into the nursing home and never came out. That Sukasa place, which turned into Whispering Oaks over on 15th Street and near Osborne. What's that side street? Caracas, I think it is. So I ended up going into labor and I'm here. I'm dilating. I don't have any pain, no contractions. I think God had intended for it to be like a perfect birth. And before I gave birth to the children, Millie Henry, who I thought was a friend, came here with, let me see, it was Millie, Amar, Ishua. I don't think Rasheen was born. Ishua and Sarah. We went to Indian Rocks Beach and she did some kind of dedication ceremony for me, and we dedicated the twins to Yemenya because back then I was trying to learn about Ifa, Santeria. There's a difference. Yoruba. So with Yoruba comes the Ifa religion under the Spanish people who kept the indigenous African people's religion alive. It garnished the name Santeria. And so the two of them are very similar, but there are differences. So she did the ceremony for me. The water was very cold. I probably had no business getting in the water. I got in the water and my baby jumped. I thought he was going to kick through the skin. So it must have been a moon that kicked me. But the water was very cold. I'm being probably too detailed and my stomach's starting to hurt. That's what happens when I start feeling the sadness of what happened to me and my children. So the day that I went into labor, I didn't feel confident that I could give birth at home, even though I was watching these YouTube videos and women were squatting down in their living room and giving birth to breached babies and footling breached babies, and things were going well for them. I had people talking to me that helped me to be afraid, so I was afraid. So I went to Morton Plant Meese Hospital. It was supposed to be the best hospital in the Tampa Bay area. So we drove over to Clearwater Beach. They admitted me, and that's where all of the terror went down. A bunch of lies put on paper. They were able to take my children from me at 3 days old. And I never raised those children. They completely kidnapped them away from me. Allegedly, my brother Anthony ended up adopting them. They refused to allow my mother, Dorothy Atkins, to adopt them, which the benefit of my mother, Dorothy Atkins, adopting my children would have been when she died, they would have been able to get her retirement income, and they wouldn't have had to live such a rough life. But I can't remember that lady's name. Back then it was Hillsborough Kids Incorporated. Keisha Riggins, she was the guardian ad litem, and the attorney for the guardian ad litem was Aisha Lewis. And then she got married during the whole thing and became Aisha Lewis Klug, Klugh. I cast judgment on both of you black women. You all did a terrible job representing me and helping my children, representing my children and helping my children. You hustled backwards. The Assistant Attorney General, Laura Alexis Mason, she was a real shrewd, and they don't do good work in that court, I'm telling you. And instead of them acknowledging that I was an activist, they decided to go with she's crazy. Where did they get that notion from? While I was in the hospital, the day of birth, I was refusing to allow them to cut me for the C-section. I said, no, I'm going to give birth naturally. So I'm in the bathroom doing some of the techniques that I learned in Ina Gaskin's book, because according to Dr. Louis Paleo, the first presenting baby, which was my son, was coming footling breech. And if he would have allowed me to give birth to the footling breech first, my baby girl is set. She was head down in the vertex position. And that's the way it is in life. A moon always messing around, and a set is quietly in position. And that's the way it was in my womb. Um, they said they wouldn't take the risk of birthing him footling breech first because we were all gonna die. Sound like a lie? It was a lie, but who am I? I went there to ask for their help, so they threatened to Baker Act me if I didn't sign it so that they could force a C-section upon me. And I thought I should leave here. I should just run out of here and tell him to come on and let's go somewhere else. When your water has broken and you're in active labor, they can say that you're putting your children at risk and you can't leave the hospital, or at least that's what they told me. I don't know how true that is. But my babies were still in my womb when I wanted to leave. And they must have put me under Baker Act then. But they didn't tell me that. They said, if you don't sign these forms, we're going to Baker Act you and get a court order to do the C-section. So under duress, with great disagreement, I signed, and I put under duress and signed it after the doctor said they would wait 20 minutes so that my babies could get all of the blood from their placentas. They said, yeah, we'll wait 20 minutes before we clamp, but they just told that lie to get me to sign the papers. And they gave me a spinal tap. And when I tell you, they shot up my spine with whatever kind of fluids those were. And in minutes, literally, they were cutting on me. And I was laying there, tears rolling down my face, just couldn't believe my reality. And I'm yelling. They told me I could watch the birth. They lied. They wouldn't turn the mirror around so I could see. And I said, don't forget you said you wouldn't clamp the cords for 20 minutes. Don't forget you said you wouldn't clamp the cords for 20 minutes, because I was awake. And they did the early cord clamping anyway. They clamped those cords and cut them immediately. They throw the baby in your face for 2 seconds and then whisk the baby away. And the babies were both crying, and they were healthy, strong lungs. But in order to cover their ass, because they manipulated me several times just to get consent, they said that my babies were weak and feeble and needed to go to the NICU, which were lies. And Dr. Pettigrew was over that OBG department at the time. This was May 26th of 2004. So I guess to further cover their ass, and probably Natalie was trying to get me incarcerated so that Ava could get custody of my baby so that they could, get the paychecks from the foster care people and live a cushy life. A lot of this information I learned many, many years later. My children are now 20 years old, but I am not on their birth certificate as their birth mother, unless they're playing games with vital statistics here in Hillsborough County. I took my daughter when she turned 18 to go get a birth certificate. My name was not there, only Anthony K. Atkins's name was on there as the father, and there was no mother's name on there. So help me, Lord. I'm on live, so I don't have to worry about the SD card because it's full, and I need some more birthday cash. But Auntie Cookie, my mother, Dorothy Atkins's sister, that looks like her. Her name is Rosemary Frazier. Frazier is the name she got when she married whoever she married. She tried to send me $25 Cash App, and it's being blocked for some reason. That's what she said anyway. When I try to request $25, it's saying payment not sent. So that probably means the hackers are messing around, and I'm blaming my nephew, Alexander Malik Thompson, for hacking into the device, trying to get things diverted. It's Christmas time. We usually go out into the world and ask for donations, but I'm not doing that this year because I don't want to pay hackers. I don't want to be donating money to hackers, not even if it's my nephew. So, help me. Help me. I am strong. I am mighty. I am woman. I am God. I am a billionaire. I attract $1 billion opportunities. I am a master manifester. Everything that is mine by divine right returns to me peacefully, prosperously, and is protected. Okay. So back to the hospital. After they gutted me like a fish and put me in the room, I told them to bring me my babies. They need to stay in the room with me. They want your babies to stay in the hospital nursery. And I'm like, they were with me for 9 months. Why are you now going to put them in some strange cold place? They need to be in here with me. And I guess that's their way of making sure everything is okay. But now that I'm learning about witchcraft, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other things that occur in the hospital, and this is why you need to strengthen your body and be making sure you're strong enough to birth your own babies at your house. Pay the midwife to be there, but you be the lead person, because a lot of midwives do unscrupulous things also. Yanking on the umbilical cord, squeezing the umbilical cord so that the blood goes back up. Then they say they have to take the umbilical cord and they sell it. That's worth a lot of money. And I'm sure there's some decent midwives that don't. But when I interviewed them, I told them, I don't want you touching on the placenta. I want the transfusion of blood to be able to happen without any human interruption. And most of them said they could not guarantee that. So I was still in a fix. And that's why I worked to become a midwife for many years. But I had so many blockages after they took my twins. I kept fighting with the 13th Judicial Circuit Court, going between Tallahassee to Washington, D.C., to try to get somebody to hear what I was saying. And because I didn't have an organization and a bunch of people behind me, they had a hard time hearing. One little black lady, crazy lady, who wanted to keep her placenta attached to her babies. I had a boy and a girl, so that's a fraternal twin pregnancy, and you have two different placentas. Okay. So whenever you have a fraternal pregnancy, it can be two girls, two boys. But if it's fraternal, that means there were two individual different eggs that were fertilized, and that means you're going to have two individual placentas. If it's identical, identical as far as I know can only be two girls or two boys, because that's one egg. It splits into two. They're going to be the same sex, and more than likely they're going to look a lot alike. Okay, so I was talking about Lotus birth and how I wanted my babies to leave, for them to leave the placentas attached, and they wrote the most bogus probable cause statement. They said that I was hearing voices and I was putting my children in medical threat by asking to leave the placentas attached. This was back in 2004. The Assistant Attorney General for Pinellas County was Trista Sampson. She's the one that wrote the probable cause statement that got my children put into DCF custody at the hospital. My mom came out to the hospital. They said, if you sign this form, they'll let your babies come home with me. I said, Mom, they're lying. That's all they do is lie. They lie to deceive you. And she's like, please, please, Aileen. My mom used to do this crying thing often, but it touched my heart, and it 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 was what her go-to to manipulate me, and I gave in, and I signed the form. And you know what they said? The children are going into DCF custody, and your mom will have to go to court to get possession of your children. So she's standing up there looking like Annie Gump. I'm assuming she was not manipulating me. I don't know. I think they just deceived us both. Well, they deceived her, but I allowed myself to be deceived for the sake of my mother. So for 10 days, my children went to some stranger's house, and they probably took a lot of blood and did all kinds of rituals to my children before my mom got custody of them. Help me. Help me. It's amazing how the pain of that day comes rushing back when I think about it. 10 days later, well, they did pack up my placentas and give them to me, and I had them in the cabinet in my hospital room. Now, when my son left, I didn't think to give it to him because, he was 16, maybe 15 or 16. He left to drive back to Tampa, which was our home, 6010 North 32nd Street to be exact, my childhood home. And uh, you can do it. Everything happens for a reason. There is no test without, there is no testimony without a test. And this is a test. God allowed you to go through it because He knew you were strong enough to handle it. This is my self-talk to get me back to finishing this story. So they came in the room to get the placentas. I said, no, I'm taking my placentas home. I'm going to bury them and plant a tree on top of them. Well, they wanted my placentas. I'm Rh negative, and it's a rare blood type, and they really kind of go crazy over Rh negative blood and any blood byproducts. I want you to know they sent a little short black guy. I think he had a mustache. He was a security guard. He wasn't a police officer. And he had the little bucket with them little clear fluids that I know because I used to go visit Ronald Cogman Jr. at Grace Point in Tampa, Florida, whenever he ended up in the psych ward. And I'm very, very afraid of those chemicals. So I was no longer trying to protect the placentas. I was like, oh my God, please God, don't let them inject me with any of that stuff. Please God. don't let them inject me with any of that stuff. I remember when I went to see Ron and his body was contorted and twisted, his mouth was twisted, his head was twisted. I was like, what they gave you? He said, Respiridol. I said, shit, I don't never want to meet that. But I'm sure when the black man from the psych ward came into the room, my hospital room, to steal my placentas from me, I'm certain that Respiridol was in that bucket with all of those little vials of clear liquid. I'm sure some tranquilizer was up in there. And so I said, God, oh my God, I didn't realize how much danger I was in. So I decided to lay down my activist hat and to become like a humble puppy. And that's what I did. I said, listen, don't stick me with that, please. And they basically said, if you cooperate, it's no problem. I sat down in the wheelchair. They rolled me down, and I could hear the cabinet doors slamming. They were going through all of my belongings. They took my work notes, which, as an activist, the names and dates of what they were doing to me. I had a detailed log of what they were doing to me. And those notes disappeared and my two placentas were taken. It was a vampire from the pathologist. Well, he was the hospital's pathologist, at least one of them. I call him a vampire because he looked like he had absolutely no blood in him at all. He looked like a walking ghost. And then the lady allegedly was from risk management. And they took my placentas. I sat down in the psych ward in a wheelchair crying for an hour and praying, and they came and took me back to the room, and my placentas were gone. I called that ACHC program. None of that made a difference. When the government comes together and decides that you're a problem because you're a troublemaker and they want to traumatize you to the point of making you shut up. There's really nobody that can do anything other than God. It becomes a very spiritual matter then, because the Word of God says He has the king's heart in His hands. What I did not know then, that I believe now, I believe Natalie Renee Carnegie was saying negative things to get me put into the psych ward, to try to get me admitted as a patient. And I believe she was working with my family, maybe my brother, Anthony, maybe Ava. I really think it was Ava. And Ava was supposed to end up with my twins. And I prayed, and I think God just delivered me from their sinister plan. So I sat down there for about an hour, and they rolled me back to my room, and I had limited access to my children. I couldn't figure out what it was, but they probably already had me in some kind of psych hold or something. When I went to get my records, it wasn't in my records. So I don't know, but my mom paid for me to stay at a hotel on the beach so that I could continue to breastfeed my children and just walk up to the hospital and breastfeed my babies. So that's what I did. I walked up to the hospital, breastfed, and there was a nurse in there telling me my nipple was too large for my daughter's mouth. She was 4 pounds, 7 ounces. They were trying to discourage me from breastfeeding because maybe they knew they were going to take my babies. I don't know. And it was hard being around people who were trying to excite a riot within you and speak against your motherhood and speak against your bonding. Another one was like, oh, you're, what do you call it when you are lewd and lascivious, like exposing yourself, breastfeeding and so-called inappropriate places. They just were playing a lot of, they were gaslighting me, and I didn't know that expression at the time. I didn't know that psychological warfare tactic at the time. And the black, shriveled up, raisin looking lady that sat in the room with me, she was a sitter. She was called a sitter. So they might even lied and said I was, what do you call it? Suicidal or gonna harm my children. I said, would you please turn my blinds up so that the light would not come in? And she turned it so that the light could come in. So, after you ask a person to do something 2 or 3 times, you might raise your voice, you might fuss with them. So they were like, ooh, document that and say that she was this. So they were creating situations, and that's what they're doing to me now as well. The babies were in there with me in 2 different bassinets, and a big, like Big Bird. She was like Big Bird. Her name was Rose. She was an registered nurse. She came into the room and said, we're going to take the babies to the nursery to weigh them. I said, no, yesterday they weighed them in here. You can weigh them in here. She was trying to take the babies because DCF was probably there to take them into custody. But she was going to lie to me to get access to them. And then when I say, can you bring me my baby so I can breastfeed? Then they were going to tell me, well, they're in the, they're gone, basically. So I'm holding my baby, the one that I was breastfeeding, and she's trying to yank the bassinet, and I'm pulling on the bassinet. So they were like, ooh, let's say she almost dropped the baby. It was a lie, but they put it in the documents. And I'm going to cut this short. So just to shorten a long story, they took my babies, and I never brought them home. And they terminated my parental rights in the 13th Judicial Circuit Court. The attorney who was supposed to be representing me, the last attorney, Barbara Twine Thomas, she maliciously misrepresented me, and they rewarded her by making her a judge here in Hillsborough County. And my fake friend Natalie Renee Carnegie, my sister Ava, were all behind the plot to do that to me. My sister Ava later went to USF to get her bachelor's degree in social work, and then she went to Miami to Berry University to get her master's in social work so that she could lord over me. They knew what I didn't know, that I had a trust fund. And so they set up many scenarios throughout my life to try to make it appear that I was crazy, because I've never done drugs, never prostituted, never been a drinker. I did go out and party a little bit. And I don't know if they used that against me in any way, but my main thing was my activism. So they started trying to turn my activism into, she's the crazy lady. Then when I got into spirituality, when I started working on my master's degree in interdisciplinary sciences with National Louis University, I would carry around tarot cards, and they started saying she's crazy, she does voodoo, she does witchcraft, and made a bad time for me. And I'm going to end it there. Is there anything more I need to say? I went to speak with Jeb Bush personally. Cover your legs up, girl.
I'm fine. My feet aren't flat. Get up, buddy.
I went and spoke with Governor Jeb Bush personally. I spoke with Attorney General Charlie Crist personally, and Um, I don't know what to say really. They told me they would do something and they didn't do anything. Well, they worked against me, so I guess that's something. The last time I went to Washington, D.C. to go to a donors conference, Doulas of North America, to do the training and get certified. I did the training. I did not get certified. They refused to take the money. Maybe that was because I was passing out flyers that said, Jeb Bush is a coward. And I walked up and down the halls of the White House trying to talk to congressmen, whoever would listen to my story, and file complaints with HHS, and so that my complaint, so that my information could not be found. I believe Natalie Renee Carnegie had her cousin who worked for HRS, that's what it used to be called, Health Rehabilitation Services, to change my date of birth from November 24th, 1970 to, I don't know, maybe she changed it to her birthday and she pretended to be me. I don't really know. I know somewhere in forms I saw that my date of birth was changed from the 11th month to the 12th month. I was born in November and they changed it to December, some date in December. So I've been through a lot of trauma. Okay, Hotep, I don't know how you all could get us some gift cards. Anything you send me digitally, electronically through this phone, the hackers, they sit over here full time. I think they are homeless and live in cars out in this area where we are now. There's a lot of people that live in cars, and they're always in the phone taking things, just like the $25 I'm trying to get from Auntie Cookie. I mean, if she told the truth that she really tried to send it, then she said she wanted to mail it, and we're in hiding because there are people trying to kill me over these inheritances. As an activist, many people told me they would leave me money, they would donate money. Les Brown said he was going to buy me a bookstore. And this is all to help my activism go forward so that I can help primarily African Americans get over the trauma of slavery, because psychologically we still suffer. And for indigo and crystal children of all races, I want to help us protect our psychic abilities. We're going to be needed. We're just at the dawning of the age of Aquarian. And it helps to be around people who can bear witness to what you're saying. People who are still matrix minded, when they meet people that have Clara sentient, Clara audience, Clara audience, I'm going to say Clara cognizance, they have these. We all, I think, have those abilities because we all used to speak to one another telepathically. Some people's gifts are more dormant than others, but we all have that thing where we say, something told me. And it's just like, yeah, your inner God self speaks to you often. And if you listen, you'll have a smooth sailing life. When you don't listen, you have problems, problems, problems. And we're taught against listening to that voice. We are trained to believe that we need evidence in this material world, and we disregard the evidence that God gives us, which should be the most important. And as a result, many very gifted people have been labeled as having schizophrenia, delusions of grandeur, bipolar, attention deficit disorders, and that's how they keep the world in a mundane state as opposed to putting people who have these gifts readily available in high positions so that they could raise the vibration of our society. They use them to energy harvest off of, and many of them get locked up in psych wards, assisted living facilities, nursing homes. They become the derelicts of society that are collecting disability checks, might even become homeless chronically, end up on drugs because they feel like there's no place for them here and they're misunderstood. So I want to create a safe space for those people to come, rest, relax, heal, heal, heal. And I believe we'll see a major difference in our society. I believe we will see the heightening of intellect. According to Dr. John Gray, there are 8 different intelligences, and these children are coming out with such amazing abilities. You've seen the YouTube videos with the babies being born holding up their necks. Now, when I was giving birth in the 80s, it took about 2 weeks for children to have the strength to hold up their necks. Now, my 2 Lotus birth babies, born June 14th, 2010, and February 25th, 2007, they were not only born holding up their necks, they were born with muscles. And I was spending a lot of money at the health food store buying chlorophyll, greens, colloidal minerals, vegetable based prenatal vitamins, extra calcium. And so with Angola, I was practicing jujitsu in 15 Lohan. And as a result, her birth was 20 minutes long and 2 pushes. Excuse me. The first one was the head, the second one was the body. And that was at 6010 North 32nd Street. And she was yelling and screaming, and her head was outside of my body, and she was and my sister, I was like, see, Aileen, I knew it, I told you, I knew you were gonna have birth here. Well, that's what I was planning, Dodo. You gotta go to the hospital. You gotta go to the hospital. Like, I'm not going to the hospital for 10 days, baby. But she called the people and they came and took her into DCF custody. And they returned her to me the next day. But she was still outside of my care and custody. They could have sucked all kind of blood out of her, put things into her, did witchcraft over her. You know, it's not right for you to take a woman's child out of her care and custody when they're not in danger and they don't know what's going on. With Abby, it took about 2 hours and 19 contractions. And I mean, they were serious. Oh my God. And Abby's birth, we were listening to music dedicated to Obatala. She was born at 2212 East Mallory Avenue, a property I'm sure my grandmother gave me, but my brother stole with the help of my uncle's wife. My uncle Gideon Henley is Grandma Irene P. Scarborough's youngest child, and Grandma moved from Tampa. When Grandma was here in Tampa, she lived at 29 13 East 20th Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33605 or oh 04, I can't remember. And when she couldn't drive anymore because she was about to kill me, I said, I'm going to call Uncle Pumpkin and tell him to come get this car. She'd be speeding and then all of a sudden just hit the brakes. Like, can you imagine going from 70 miles an hour to hitting the brakes on the interstate? When I got out of that car, I said, never again, lady. Never again. I didn't even think I was going to get out of there without being engaged in an accident, but it was crazy and it was scary. So I called my Uncle Pumpkin and said, you need to come get this car. Grandma don't need to drive no more. And I think she resented me for doing that. But I think through the years, she recognized that I did the world a favor and her too, because she was going to end up hurting somebody, including herself. And for a long time, Toy would come and run errands and go to the store back and forth for her. And then Uncle Pumpkin came and picked up the car. And then he came and picked up Grandma. And she moved to Griffin, Georgia to live with Uncle Pumpkin, whose real name is Gideon Henley. And he married Catherine with a K, Henley. And Catherine with a K signed off to give my brother, Anthony Catharterus Atkins, both pieces of property on Mallory, 2210 East Mallory Avenue and 2212 East Mallory Avenue, where I gave birth to Abby, and we used to live there. And I borrowed money from Letitia Karima Penn, $3,300 to pay 3 years back taxes on that property. And I called my brother Anthony and asked him if I could stay there. He said, if I paid the back taxes, he said, yes, I could stay there for a year. So that's a pretty good deal, right? $3,300 for a year. Now, it was a wooden little shack, but I loved that place. The gate was 5 feet tall all the way around. And I was going to get me some chickens and start back growing my own food. The one problem I had was these big rats. And now, everywhere I go, we end up with rats pretty much. And I think my brother buys rats and drops them off. But I went and bought some rat poison. It looked like little spongy sun-kissed jelly candy. And they ate that and they died off. The other problem was the door was not secure. So I thought, we need to get the door fixed. But in the interim, I went to the baby daddy's house, Abraham Vada Jones, and gave his mother a note asking him to come and live with us because I was afraid to live in that house by myself without like some burglar bars, because there was a bar called Jean's Bar and it was half a block over. And because of that bar, a lot of violence took place there, and a lot of drug addicted people walked up and down the streets at that time. And I don't know if she ever gave him the note, but she broke into the house. She told me she went in the house, and she had no right to do that. All you needed was a butter knife or a credit card, and you'd be in there in a couple of seconds. But one day I came back and I drank water or ate something or cooked something, and I almost died. And Letitia talking about, oh, it's because, it was nasty. Your kitchen was nasty. And I was like, a couple of dirty dishes is not nasty. I just gave birth to a baby. And Millie came from Roxbury. She had moved back to Boston. And she came down because she's a doula, to be my doula, because my brother Anthony kept saying, you don't need to give birth by yourself. What if you die? What if you... I'm like, come on, guy. Now, this time I was ready to give birth by myself because I had taken the DONA class, with the Doulas of North America in Washington, D.C., and I had been reading as many books as I could get my hands on. I hadn't gone to the University of Miami to start my midwifery classes yet because I couldn't figure out how to commute back and forth from Tampa to Miami. And I didn't want to move back to Miami. And there were a few colleges in the area that had the midwifery program. I was going to the Bradley husband coached meetings in Clearwater Beach, and I just felt confident. I knew I could birth this baby by myself. And I was having prenatal visits with myself because Ina Gaskin teaches you how to do that in the book. And the day of birth, how to prep for it, and how to do the APGAR scoring, which you do it twice. And I felt ready. The environment wasn't ready. We had just moved into that house. That house had been closed up for a long time. It really needed cleaning and stuff. But I was 8 months pregnant, 9 months pregnant, ready to drop by the time I got in there because my auntie Etta Kate and Marvis, her daughter Marvis Fambro, told me I could come there to Savannah, Georgia, and I could give birth there at home. So I left Tampa, moved to Savannah, Georgia, me and Angola. Angola was about 3 years old, to give home birth in Savannah, Georgia. And I lived with Little Bit Marvis. Her friend family had it was like an apartment near the Savannah College of Arts and Design, SCAD, right up the block, a couple of blocks up from SCAD. And we didn't have lights, but we had running water there. And it was the hottest summer. The hottest summer. And one day, Auntie Etta Kate called and wanted to speak with me. And I said, "Hey, Auntie." And she's like, "You're going to have to go to the hospital to give birth." I said, "Auntie, before I came here, the discussion was I could have home birth here. That's why I came all the way here. That's why I came here to Savannah, Georgia." And she was like, "You got to go to the hospital." I said, "Well, okay." And then I left and came back to Tampa because I figure if I go to Savannah, Georgia, and they found out that my children have been taken into DCF custody, they're going to take my babies. Now I'm all up here in Georgia fighting. I said, nope, let's go back to Tampa, Florida, where the fight started. It didn't really start in Tampa, Florida, but that's where the most of the trauma took place, in the 13th Judicial Circuit Court here. At that time, Chief Judge Menendez was in office. And that's what I did. I came back. So when I came back, I talked to Letitia, and she's like, "What are you going to do?" I was like, "I got to find a safe place to give a home birth because I don't want to do it here at 6010 North 32nd Street. If DCF comes, from what I hear, they take all the children." And Ava was there, and she had Ray Ray, and I didn't want Ray Ray to end up in DCF custody. So as I talked to my friend Letitia, who I had supported years before when she was going through things, when she didn't get married to Arthur Richardson, she was really, really sad. And she used to lay there at my house and relax and have a good time. I would cook, we'd eat, we'd talk, and support each other, you know. She had a failed engagement, so I tried to be a supportive friend to her. And she returned the favor by loaning me $3,300 to pay the back taxes, and I moved over there so that I could give birth there. And Millie came down to help me, and I don't know if there was any slick things in the background. I don't know if Letitia loaned me that money because she wanted to steal the property or steal my identity. I don't know if Millie came to help me because she wanted to sacrifice my baby. Like, kill it. Because when I gave birth to Abby, she's like, "Oh, you were about to drop that baby." I'm like, "No, I was never going to drop my baby." And I didn't know why she would say that. And then, as I was waiting for the placenta to be born, she said, "Why don't you tug on the umbilical cord a little bit?" And I'm thinking, she's a doula. Why would she ever suggest you tug on the umbilical cord? That could cause hemorrhaging. So I don't think her intentions were pure. And I think she came to try to create a negative scenario so that the other two children, my Lotus birth children, could end up in DCF custody. A lot of people see children as a paycheck. And even though they're supposed to be your friend or your family, and you think they might be working for you, in their mind, in the back of their mind, they're hoping something happens so that they can take custody of your children, so that they can get a $3,000 per child, per diem, paycheck, whatever it's called. And her and her mom gave me nipples, and I used the nipples that they gave me. They were in a plastic bag. I assumed they had already been washed, and as soon as I used those nipples, my baby ended up with thrash. And so I went to my La Leche League member and I said, my baby has thrash and I don't know why. And so she's like, well, let me examine your breast. And of course, my breasts didn't have any thrash and they were healthy and beautiful and perky. And it had to be those nipples she gave me. So I ended up having to take my baby to the hospital, not hospital, Hillsborough Health, Tampa Hillsborough Health Center. And that's where they illegally immunized my baby against my will. So how were they able to do that? I was the mother of record. I didn't have any open DCF cases. So who gave them the power to immunize my child? It was a 6-month visit, I think. He said, lay the baby on the thing. Help me, God. Help me clear up all of this hurt and pain. And so that's another thing. I want to open a trauma dissolution center. All people of all walks of life and all types of trauma can come there and rest and participate in group counseling to help them talk out the hurt. I learned from Ron L. Hubbard a technique called clearing. You keep talking about it, talking about it, talking about it, talking about it, and before long, you no longer cry, you no longer feel pain, and you can talk about it as though it were, an event that didn't happen to you, which is the point of healing. And that frees you up to go live a better life. And that's the goal. So I've said a lot, and it started with that dream where I was walking around with no head, and I still got in that car and drove myself to the hospital. Now, in the dream, I didn't make it to the hospital, but I got in that car, and I am certain I made it to the hospital. And I'm going to do a little research and find out what it means to be beheaded. It keeps coming up in the readings that somebody is saying, I'll kill for this. Or kill some more, because most of all my siblings, I'm sure, are responsible for people dying in differing ways. Was I supposed to say that out loud? Divine Creator. Yes. And that's part of the reason they want me to be quiet and they come against my YouTube channel. They've stolen inheritances that were supposed to come to me, stimulus checks during COVID. I didn't get any of my stimulus checks. They stole them all. And they might have already stolen my identity way back then. I didn't know it. They might have already been receiving a disability check in my name. I didn't know it. One of the things I knew is that every time I started working, I would get to the 6 month mark and then they would fire me. So I believe they were getting a disability check for me even way back then. Probably Ava was getting a disability check for me back in 2019 when I am praying and asking God around 2012, 2013. She may have been getting a check for my children being in DCF custody. And after I left Ann's house, that was what, 20 somebody. I was working at Trinity Hospital as a fire watchman. I was working the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. And Ann, the lady we lived with, whose mom I was watching, she was supposed to be watching my girls, and she let them be outside at 10 o'clock at night, which I believe she set me up. Maybe she was angry because I wasn't paying her for watching my children. I wasn't cashing my checks. I was stacking my checks so that I could move across the street to Dr. Mubain's little one-bedroom apartments. So I was just keeping my checks. I wasn't cashing them. But I did favors for her, like driving her here and there. They were stealing out of my car, my inventory, and I took good care of her mom, Miss Linda Carr, Knarr, I think was her last name. We lived on 11th Avenue, 11th Street in Annie, or 11th Avenue in Annie in Sulphur Springs. I can't remember whether it was an avenue or a street. It ran north and south, so it had to be a street. Yeah, I think it was a street. Annie was an avenue that ran perpendicular. And so the neighbors called DCF and started a open case because of that. And I was trying to decide whether I was going to continue to stay in the little one-bedroom apartment across the street from Ann or go live with my son. Well, I called him and told him, and he said, yeah, you can come. But his wife seemed angry that he gave me permission to come without, I guess, talking to her. And in the tarot, they suggested that they were getting checks. Well, maybe not they, maybe the wife. I don't think my son knew, but he could have. And I don't even know if it's true that they were getting checks for Abby and Angola, saying that they lived with them and they were their foster parent. You know, when it comes to money, people do things behind your back and they don't have any problems with it. They'll file income taxes before you using your children, usually baby daddies or your siblings, people who have access to those security numbers. But I didn't know that I was in a crime family. I didn't know that I was in a family that practiced fraud. So they've crossed my life up pretty good. And I'm going to get my identity back. I'm going to get my inheritances. I'm going to get control over my trust fund. And my children and I are going to get some suitable housing, whether we fix up this house. I hope I own it. A friend was supposed to buy it for me and put it in a living trust. I don't have that paperwork. I don't have a safe place to receive paperwork. My sister Alva and Anthony, they've been stealing paperwork mail for years, and they'll occasionally send me some junk mail, but my brother doesn't have any problems cashing my checks. My sisters ain't got no problems cashing my checks. I guess they figure ain't nobody gonna believe her, or we'll pay off, the mailman, we'll pay off the bank manager, we'll put it in her account and just come and steal it out of her account, and we'll pay them off. They have those kind of mindsets. And they haven't gone to jail yet, so I guess they think, she ain't got no power. Her God don't love her that much. And she just got to take the loss and 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 the loss. And I just have to keep myself calm because I still have my two Lotus birth girls that I'm raising. They were both born at home in the bathroom. And if I get to fighting with my family, then I'm going to lose my children. Now, on paper, I don't think they're in my care and custody. Um, on paper, there's no telling where they're saying they live, but they have been here with me as they have been with me since I gave birth to them in the bathroom. But people, they probably paid. Marissa was the first DCF, what do you call that, child protective person that came, and they probably paid them off to put all kind of crazy stuff in those records and those DCF files, and then signed them up to get stipends to get an apartment, a bigger apartment, so that the girls could move with them. And then the girls have been with me, struggling up and down the streets the whole while. And that's fraud, but you know, who really cares? Who's going to do something about it? So I guess I'm going to end here. I feel pretty good. I'm hungry now, so I got to get up and try to get me something to eat. I do want to say thank you to my ancestors, the Orishas, the Marionetters, the Ascended Masters, Archangels, and the Creator of this fine universe, because these people have really been trying to kill me in many ways, spiritually and in the physical realm. So you all pray for me. I'm still begging for 1 billion prayers. Pretty much my friends are in the angelic host. The people that I called friends here on this physical plane, the baby daddies who don't pay child support. And if they do pay child support, they send the child support back to their house. They reroute it back to them. We don't receive no child support checks. And we don't get no occasional help. Not from Clarence Joseph Washington Jr., Angola's daddy, and not from Abraham Vada Jones. If they give some help, they must be giving it to my family, and they don't give me nothing. I was just half near begging Auntie Cookie for the little $25 she was gonna send me for my birthday. I told her I'll send it back to you when it's your birthday. $25, that's not much. I can afford to pay that back in the position that I'm in right now. Um, I was about to say something and I lost my train of thought. I guess there's no sense in beating a dead horse. The most important part of this all is that I'm alive and well. My children are alive and well. And as I'm reporting these things to the CIA, I sometimes wonder if they done paid off a corrupt agent there, because How does it take 4 years? I've heard about 3 years, but how is it taking 4 years? We're getting ready to go into year number 5 now. How does it take that long to find out they stole my inheritances, many of them? George Powell Jr., Albert Clayton, hold on, Donald Ross, Irene P. Scarborough, Auntie Nazarene, Larry Thompson, well, shoot, Dorothy Atkins, Arthur Atkins. The inheritances left to me. I didn't get them. So now what they're doing is presenting a fake death certificate to steal from me. Now that takes a lot of audacity, right? But they may be a part of a coven, and the covens may pay the police to look the other way or not prosecute. They may be paying the DAs. Ain't no telling. We went to court in 20, I think 19, because Anthony came home and got into an altercation with Alexander Malik Thompson, my little, 5 foot, maybe 100 pounds, soaking wet with sand in his pockets, nephew, and he threw him on the ground and was banging his head against the ground. Now, the police was called and all of that. When we went to court, my brother was kneeling down in the pulpit of the court. It's not called a pulpit, but it looks like a pulpit. I looked in his eyes and he was like in a trance. And it looked like a knighting ceremony when a person is getting knighted. It didn't look like no court proceedings. And I guarantee you, if you go through the court records, it doesn't even exist. Amber Tuberville was the one that, you know, what is she called? She was supposed to be prosecuting the crime. They brought Angola in the room and took her back there by herself and did whatever. Then I came in and got on the stand and answered a couple of questions. I'm assuming Alexander, my nephew, went in and answered a couple of questions, and then they let him go saying that it was self-defense. So he never gets prosecuted for anything that he does. I don't know if that's because he's with the Omega Sci-Fi group or because he's paying off the judges. But he, likes to put his hands on people inappropriately, and he never gets a domestic violence charge. My sister Ava called the police on him in Opelika when the twins were graduating from Christina Curry Education Center, something like that. And I came to the graduation because Ava came and got me, and Anthony was mad that I was there. He was mad at her for her bringing me there.
Namaste, Soul Tribe family.
Wait a
Welcome back
minute.
to my A1s, who are my day ones, to the Soul Tribe
And
family members who
I'm
have
clocking
recently
into
subscribed,
Tarot
to the
University.
family members in a
He grabbed a,
soul.
I don't know, what do you call that thing? Weed whacker, tree liner, and was trying to hit me with it. And he was drunk. And his secretary or assistant, Juliet, was there. And we were all getting ready to go to bed. But I could tell there wasn't going to be any peaceful rest because I grew up with an alcoholic father, Arthur Atkins. And you learn just by listening to the voices. Sometimes you can feel whether it's going to be an all right night or not. And I knew it wasn't going to be all right. Now, the reason I now think Ava set me up is because she lived in Miami. She was going to Barry University. But she was riding around. I told her to just take me to the train station. I'll just wait there and I'll catch the train back. And she's riding around like she don't know where the train station is. I said, it's some bullshit. She knows where the train station is. So she ended up going to a hotel and paying for a hotel and then taking me the next day to the train station to so I could get back to Tampa. But I've been set up in so many ways, and I've been gullible and just silly, simple, stupid for a long time. That's why now I don't really interact with people. It takes me a little while to find out that I'm being set up, and shit is serious right now. So it's like, just stay away from humans for the most part. And there are, instances where I need to be around people. Right now, the COTE, Homeless Recovery Organization that God had me to put together, I have to interact with people, talk to them, find out what their needs are, contact companies, ask them to give us things, contact people, ask them to donate. So I do what I need to do, but as far as getting chummy with people and thinking that I have friends or I got a boyfriend, yeah, I don't do that too much anymore. If God is going to send me a mate, He's going to come with His credentials, and God is going to open and soften my heart to receive that person. That's how I look at it. Peace. 1 minute 46 seconds and 40 no 1 minute for 1 hour 46 minutes and now 48:49 seconds, 9:13 a.m. Today is November 26, 2024. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? What is it? Let me see. It's Tuesday. Ogun's Day. Godspeed. I don't know how to end the live. Let me try to figure this out. Welcome to the live. Remember to keep your guards up. Parker, stop. Yep. What's up? Okay, I never really pay attention to the live chat. Okay. Share. Sure, I'm gonna try to share it. I don't know how to share it, but okay, so I think I'm done. I don't know how to end this, but I'm gonna figure it out. Community.